Hello guys, so it is the Veena Child Protection Program in the Punjab area of Pakistan, and today we will cover the MBBS 5 years program, and ophthalmology is our main course. So let's discuss about the corneal nerve or the optical nerve responsible for the vision of the eye. Later we will discuss the errors of refraction therapies and the eye emergencies as well as pharmacy of the eye. So first is the optical nerve that we can pause with.
Hey folks, welcome to another video in anatomy. In this section of the anatomy, we're going to discuss about the second cranial nerve, the optic nerve. Introduction. Vision is an important special sense in humans. The visual pathway transmits the sense of vision from retina of the eyeball to the visual cortex of the brain. The components of the visual pathway include the following structures: the retina, optic nerve, optic chiasma, optic tract, lateral geniculate body, prefrontal area, superior colliculi, optic radiation, and visual cortex. The retina receives visual impulses from the receptor cells, which includes the rods and cones, and transmit them to bipolar cells, and later to ganglionic cells. The axons of the ganglionic cells collectively form the optic nerve, which initiates from the optic disc. The optic nerve is not a true nerve and is actually a part of the central nervous system, the diencephalon, which is myelinated by oligodendrocytes. Optic nerve is unique as it is covered by a layer of dura mater and leaves the orbit by passing through the optic canal. The components of the optic nerve are special somatic afferent fibers for vision, which arise from the retina, passes to the brain, and mediates the afferent limb of the pupillary light reflex, whereas parasympathetic fibers in the oculomotor nerve mediate the efferent limb. At the optic chiasma, fibers of each optic nerve decussate partially to form optic chiasma. The fibers from the nasal half of the retina cross to the opposite side, but those of the temporal halves do not cross. After decussation, the nerve fibers are called as optic tract. Optic tract. Each optic tract contains fibers from the nasal half of the opposite side, called the contralateral nasal hemiretina, and fibers from the temporal half of the same side, or ipsilateral temporal hemiretina. The optic tract projects into the ipsilateral lateral geniculate body, pretectal area, and superior colliculi. The lateral geniculate body is a relay station of the optic tract and is structurally made of 6-layered nucleus. Layer 1, 4, and 6 receive crossed fibers, while layers 2, 3, and 5 receive uncrossed fibers. It receives fibers from the ipsilateral temporal hemiretina and the contralateral nasal hemiretina. It also receives input from layer 6 of the striate cortex, which goes to the Brodmann's area 17. It projects through the optic radiation, or the geniculo-calcarine tract, to layer 4 of the primary visual cortex located in the Brodmann's area 17. The pretectal area is present in the midbrain, in front of the tectum. Superior colliculi are a pair of elevations to the dorsal aspect of the midbrain. Optic radiation arises from the geniculo-calcarine tract. The visual cortex is situated in the occipital lobe and is located on the banks of the calcarine fissure. The area concerned with the integration of vision is the Brodmann's area 17 around the visual cortex. The neighboring areas are 18 and 19 and are visual association areas. Here's the schematic of the visual pathway. The axons of the ganglionic cells of the retina transmit the information to the optic nerve through the optic chiasma via the optic tracts, and the information is relayed to the pretectal area, the lateral geniculate body, and the superior colliculi. The lateral geniculate body is relayed via the optic radiation to the visual cortex, the area 17, 18, and 19. Common lesions associated with visual pathway. Lesions involving central part of the optic chiasma result in destruction of fibers from both the nasal halves of retina, causing bitemporal hemianopia. This may result due to compression of the optic chiasma by a pituitary tumor. Lesions involving lateral parts of the optic chiasma causes binasal hemianopia, as the fibers from temporal halves of the retina are affected. Destruction of one optic nerve causes blindness of the affected eye. A common example is retinobulbar neuritis. Lesions in the optic tract result in homodymous hemianopia, which means loss of both the right halves or left halves of the vision.
Cranial nerves 1 and cranial nerve number 2. Cranial nerve 1 is known as the olfactory nerve. Olfactory means olfaction or smell. This picture to demonstrate is a mid-sagittal section of that nasal through the nasal cavity from a medial view. So the origin, of course, the olfactory nerve arises from receptors in the nasal cavity, which includes the supranasal concha and part of the nasal septum. It then sends its neurons through these holes in the ethmoid bone called the cribriform foramina. From the cribriform plate and the holes are the cribriform foramina. Neurons then synapse in olfactory bulb and tract and send the information to the brain to allow you to smell. This is actually an extension of the telencephalon, an extension of the forebrain. This picture in the bottom left, you can see the cribriform foramina in our mid-sagittal illustration, and there's the olfactory bulb on one side and the cribriform foramina on the other to get an idea of where we can see these nerves. Now, the olfactory nerve is responsible for SS, special sensory smell. The only place you smell is this olfactory epithelium in your nasal cavity. You knock out the olfactory nerve, your clinical findings is you don't smell. It's called the nose meow. The optic nerve. So here we have an inferior surface of view of the brain. There's our yellowed area, which is the origin of course. So there's our eyeball, and then the retina is somewhere at the back, and it's going to course, and the retina then becomes the optic nerve. It traverses this opening in the skull called the optic canal. Here's an anterior view of the skull. You close up at the orbit. There's the optic canal. That's the opening where the optic nerve traverses from the orbit through the optic canal and is now inside the cranial vault. That optic nerve courses from the optic canal to this X, which is called the optic chiasm, or chiasma, which means an X. And the optic chiasm is significant because some retinal pathways course from the retina and stay on the same side, or the ipsilateral side of this tract.
I'm going to take a closer look at your eyes now. Can you just look straight ahead for me?